welcome back everybody. Welcome to the second session today. I hope you managed to get your toilet breaks or get a cup of coffee or tea. We are now in the second session and we're going to be talking about English teacher professional development in higher education. Particularly, we're going to look at the capacity building for English teachers and EMI lecturers working in higher education. And we have 4 speakers today who will present their experience and expertise. I would like to introduce the first speaker, Ibu Cecilia Halimi. Hi, Ibu. Ibu Cecilia is the manager for Cooperation and Ventures, Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Indonesia. And she will start the session. Ibu Cecilia, time is yours.
Thank you, Francis. Okay, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share with you some information about English language teaching in higher education in Indonesia. I'll start my presentation by quoting Dennis Waitley's that says, if teachers are not learning, they are not growing and not moving toward excellence. I think I like this quote in relation to the program which is offered by the British Councils for both schools and universities in Indonesia. I think the purpose of the grants offered is for us to create innovative programs for teachers' professional development so that we all can move toward excellence. I'll start my presentation. And the purpose of this presentation is, I think, to provide the UK partners with an overview of English teachers and EMI lecturers training needs in Indonesian higher education institution. Let's start by discussing the English teaching in higher education institution in Indonesia. Well, in Indonesia, there are 2 faculties that focus on English as the core of subject of their students. The first one is the Faculty of Teachers Education, and the second one is the Faculty of Humanities or the Faculty of Letters. The Faculty of Teachers Education prepares their students to become English language teachers for all levels of education in Indonesia. While at the Faculty of Humanities, English is learned as a subject, as a tool for them to learn English literature, English linguistics, and also to do cultural studies. But in both universities, they spend a lot of time for improving their students' English proficiency. I think they spend at least 4 semesters with 10 to 12 learning hours per week. And in one semester, they have 16 effective week learning. And the goal of this is, I think, to improve their proficiency, their English proficiency. For the Faculty of Teachers Education, I think the target is to achieve the C1 level of proficiency, while at the Faculty of Humanities, the target is to achieve B2 level of proficiency. But some universities or some higher education institutions which are good, they can achieve up to C1 or C2 level of proficiency. In addition to this, in all universities, there is one course which is called English usually you call it as MKU English subject, which is required by the university, and it is an obligatory subject that has to be taken by all students from whatever faculty in the university. And the credit for this course varies between 2 and 3 credits. And in some universities, they sometimes also offer this course for 2 semesters. This is the program offered is usually general English course, but in some universities, they offer this as an English for general academic purposes. This is also true for the vocational tertiary institution and also polytechnics. Most of this institution also offer the subject in the form of general English course. Only some of them offer the subjects as English for occupational purposes. And as Indonesian universities attempt to strengthen their global competitiveness and to internalize their curricula, EMI, English as a medium of instruction, is now being introduced at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, in programs with international students, and also in courses exclusively for Indonesian students. And this program, I think the teaching staff are generally enthusiastic about this EMI. Now let's talk about the lecturers at the higher education institution. I can group them into 3 big groups. The first one is the English lecturers. They are lecturers who teach English at the Faculty of Teacher Education and the Faculty of Humanities. And we also have the MKU English lecturers. These are lecturers who are responsible for teaching the 3-credit English course for all students at the university. And these lecturers are usually part-time lecturers. They are not full-time lecturers. The last group is the subject lecturers. They are in different faculties in the universities, and they now, because of the EMI programs, they have to teach their subjects in English. Let's start with the English lecturers. Well, the English lecturers at the Faculty of Teacher Education and at the Faculty of Humanities, they all have a good command of English. I think because they spend a lot of their time learning English. But some of them do not have language teaching skills when they start teaching. This is especially true for those who come from the Faculty of Humanities or the Faculty of Letters. But all of them are responsible for teaching language classes. So they need some training in relation to the language teaching skills. The second group is the subject lecturers. They also have a good command of English because most of them graduated from universities overseas. But most of them do not have any training in teaching their subjects in English. So they just go into class and then deliver their subjects in English. And then the last group is the MKU English lecturers. The same, most of them also have a good command of English and also good language teaching skills because they usually are graduates from the Faculty of Teacher Education or the Faculty of Humanities, but most of them do not have any experience in teaching ESP courses, which are now required by a lot of universities because they want their graduates to be ready when they start their job. So, what programs are actually needed by the lecturers in the higher education institution? Well, for the English lecturers, with the pandemic, it is true that now all lecturers are familiar with the use of technology to teach English in their classroom. But I think they still need more training on this area so that they can use more varied tools for teaching English in their classroom. And then the second training that they also need is the training on how to integrate the 21st century skills into their English classes. Because with the era of globalization, we have to make sure that our graduates are ready to compete with graduates from other universities. And then because the government now has already decided the level of language proficiency targeted for our graduates, it is really important, I think, to also provide training for our lecturers about formative assessment, which is in line with the CEFR, so that they can guarantee that the graduates can achieve the targeted level. And for the lecturers from the Faculty of Teachers Education, I think breakthroughs in teachers education and training, more training on this new breakthroughs in teachers education and training is really needed for them. And for the subject lecturers, I think because the number of EMI classes are growing, more teachers are really interested in delivering their lessons also in English. But their level of proficiency is not the same as those who graduated from overseas. So if we really want to help them, it is really helpful, it is really useful if we can provide online EAP course to improve their English and also to increase their confidence in using English. And since they are very busy people, I think it's better if these EAP courses are designed for online, because they don't have time, to do the face-to-face training. And this is also true for the MKU English lecturers. They also need some online EAP courses so that they can learn what kind of subjects are taught in an EAP course. And since the study of the British Council conducted, published last year shows that there was also evidence of poor practice where educational standards were compromised in the EMI classes because of the students' low-level proficiency, and also because lecturers are not familiar with how to deliver their lesson in English. It is also very important that we also provide trainings for the EMI teachers to know about the current EMI practices and the EMI pedagogy. And for the MKU English lecturers, I think it is also important to provide them with some training about the current development in the EAP or EOP practices, the English for occupational purposes. Another important development at the university level is the fact that now the government assigned each institution to produce these massive open online courses as part of the Campus Merdeka policy. And Campus Merdeka policy offers students with freedom to collect credits for some courses based on their interests and for the preparation of their future job. So at the moment, for example, in my university, we have already had the Business English Massive Open Online courses and also the Public Speaking Massive Open Online courses. But some other universities, I think they still need some help for producing this kind of courses. So this is also an area that I think can be part of the innovative programs that we can design together. I think the Indonesian institution with the UK partner. So I can sum up that for providing breakthrough in education at the higher level of institution, there are four big areas that should be the focus of our attention. The first one is English for academic purposes. This program is actually not only important for lecturers who are teaching in English, but also for lecturers who want to continue their study overseas. So by joining this program, they can improve their English level proficiency, and therefore they will be able to do their study successfully. And then the second one, English for occupational purposes, is really needed for the tertiary vocational institution and polytechnics, if they want their graduates to be able to compete with other graduates from other countries. At the moment, this is not available in all institutions. So if it could be designed and could be offered to all institutions, then that would be a very good innovation, I think, for improving the quality of graduates from Indonesia who will work and who will compete with other employees, with other graduates from other countries. And then another area that I think we need to focus on is the English as a medium of instruction. I think based on my observation, there hasn't been any training which is designed for Indonesian lecturers. So there is a MOOC available, a massive open online course, but it is for the general public. And so if we can design one program related to this, and it is really designed for Indonesian lecturers with their with things which are really special, which are really can only be found in Indonesian context, that would be very good. And this also again should be available for all institutions, so that they can improve the quality of teaching in their double degree programs or in their joint degree program. And last but not least, as we have already listened to a lot of presentation today, using technology in language teaching is something that we can't avoid. Yeah, so whether you want it or not, lecturers, I think, at the university should integrate more the use of technology in language teaching. So this is something that I think is important at the higher level of education, because usually experienced teachers are not very easy to adapt to the use of technology in their classroom. And I think if we can work together, the partnership between Indonesian institution and also the UK institution, we can create programs, innovative programs that can help our our lecturers to improve their teaching skills and also their English proficiency. It will be very useful for Indonesia. If we cannot strive for perfection, we can work together to strive for progress. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Cecil, for your presentation. We're now going to the UK. We have Dr. Van der Viana here from the University of East Anglia. He's an associate professor in education, TESOL. So Van der, over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Francis. Really nice to see all of you. And thanks for the British Council and GIT for organizing this event. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Good afternoon to everyone in Indonesia, and good morning for those of you who, like me, are in the UK. So I'm joining you today from a lovely city called Norwich in England. That's where I live and work. So you can see some pictures in here if you've never been to Norwich. There is this kind of joint feature of historical buildings and modern buildings with plenty of green spaces in the city and around the city. So as Francis was saying, I'm an associate professor at the University of East Anglia, which is the university you can see right in the middle of your picture, surrounded by green area and the lake on our campus. And I work with master's students and PhD students in the field of TESOL and applied linguistics. So I've worked quite a long time as an English language teacher in my life, and then moved into English language teacher education and also work as a researcher. So what I'll be talking to you today is based on my experience of working in collaboration with colleagues across different countries. You see some of them on your slides, and obviously one of which is Indonesian. So at the moment, I'm conducting 2 different projects with Indonesian partners who are always a pleasure to work with, and I look forward to working with more of you in going forward. So, as you know, the event today is really dedicated to English language teacher professional development. And this is a vast area, an area that I've been working with for quite a number of years. So in my 10-minute slot, what I will try to do is to focus on English language learning more specifically. And it's great to be following Cecilia because there are lots of points of synergies between what she was saying and what I will be saying. I think both Cecilia and Steve yesterday reinforced this need for English language proficiency. Cecilia just now was talking about the target of having B2 and C1 levels for lectures in Indonesian. So my focus here is really on how technology can help us, lecturers, or as students, or as users of English, to enhance our knowledge of the English language. So, as I said, I've worked as an English language teacher for quite a while, and I still work with lots of masters and PhD students who keep asking questions about English. So, for instance, these 2 examples I'm bringing you here are from my own experience, questions that I've been asked. For instance, what kind of verb do you use with questionnaires? So when you want to say you are going to distribute your questionnaires, you're going to hand out your questionnaires, do you say, for instance, you're going to apply your questionnaires? Or when you use the phrase, for instance, the key to do something or the key to doing something, which one do you use? Can you use both? Is there a difference between them? So these are questions that we ask ourselves, that we get asked all the time. And what I would like to think about here is really, what do we do to try and solve these questions? So I would just like to add some sort of interactivity, if I may, in my presentation. I know that there are loads of people here following this presentation today. So if you could perhaps go to Slido just now, slido.com, and if you could add the code you see on your screen, 857471, and if you could answer this question. So what or who do you consult most often when you have English language doubts? So who or what do you go to answer questions like the previous 2 I showed you? Do you go to colleagues, peers, and teachers? Do you look these points up in dictionaries? Do you go to grammar books, to textbooks? What is it that you use? What resources do you use to help you solve these doubts of yours? I'll just give you a few minutes, well, seconds actually, to try and answer this question. And you can see that, as you answer, the total automatically changes here on our screen. Results keep coming in, but what you can see here is that, most people, they seem to be going to other people. So they go to colleagues, to peers, to teachers in order to help them with their English language doubts. And if we think about resources, material resources, then most people seem to be going to dictionaries to answer their doubts. What I'll be talking to you about today is just showing one example from my experience of using a resource that is available out there that we can take advantage of, which is called corporate, which some of you have answered that you do use, 19% of you. So if I may, I will just move over now. Yeah, so what I'll be discussing here is basically how we can use corpora in English language education. And that is a topic that I have been working on for quite a number of years. And I've been discussing that, for instance, in two recent publications, one in relation to ESP in my 2018 book, but there is also a new book that is almost hot off the press that is going to be available next January in 2022 on the use of corpus linguistics for English for academic purposes. So when we are talking about corpora, what is a corpus? Basically, it is a collection of texts, and it allows us to see how language is used. Now, these collections of texts are really large. So we're talking about, for instance, 1 billion words in the case of the corpus of contemporary American English, and over 13 billion words for the news on the web corpus. I'm not saying you are going to analyze these corpora by hand. No, not at all. So we have computer tools to help us do that. And one thing that was mentioned both yesterday and today is the need to rely on mobile technologies, and that's totally fine. I mean, you can access these large collections of corpora with very little bandwidth being required and through your mobile phones, for instance. So if I may go back to one of the examples I shared with you earlier on, that question about what verb is it that you use with questionnaires? So this actually comes from a sentence that was written by an advanced student of English for academic purposes who was writing his research proposal, what he was planning to do. And you can see the original example in here, where the student wrote, the questionnaires will be applied to postgraduate students in the 2015-16 year. So the question is, can we really say apply with questionnaires? Is that the verb that we use when we want to convey that idea? Well, if we look up apply being used together with questionnaire in COCA, which is the Contemporary Corpus of American English, containing 1 billion words, we only find 14 cases of apply together with questionnaire. That kind of brings some sort of anxiety, doesn't it? I mean, only 14 instances? Is that really the way most people say it? So what we can do very easily in a couple of few seconds is basically look it up. And rather than doing that live, and in order to try to save time, I will just play a short video to show you how that can be done. So all you need to do is to go to the, for instance, in this case, one of the resources we've got, to the corpus of contemporary American English. You type the words you're looking for, in this case, questionnaire, and then you will see the collocates. And so we see complete, administer, fill. In this new screen, you can go and ask for more examples. So here you have loads of examples of the verb administer being used together with questionnaire, providing students with lots of input, lots of language input to understand how this verb can be used with this noun. And I could go on and on, giving more examples to you. As I said, I mean, this for me is a fascinating area that I've been working with teachers around the world to develop their knowledge and also their students' knowledge. But I'm afraid I'm running out of time, so I won't be discussing the second example, which is the key to do or the key to doing, but I'll leave that as homework. So if you're interested in finding whether it's one or the other, you could perhaps look that up yourself, or I'm very happy to discuss that later on. So what I would like to highlight in here to try and summarize this kind of example I'm bringing to you today is that there is a way in which we can use technology, We've become more familiarized with it. We know how to use it much more nowadays than we used to know before the pandemic. And we can use this technology to help us and our students develop our English language journey, our English language learning, to help us on this journey of learning English, which is a continuous journey. I mean, it doesn't stop, really. And it's not only about people who speak English as a second or a foreign language, it's about everyone. The one thing that research has shown us is that our intuitions about how language is used do not really match how language is used. So we really need to look at these examples and analyze them. As I understand it from yesterday, developing independence is one of the critical skills that the educational sector in Indonesia is trying to develop. And corporate can help us develop that kind of independence, independent learning, autonomous learning with students and teachers and lecturers. And it also helps us develop our critical skills, because we go beyond the mere act of thinking, oh, well, I think this is the way we say it. Well, it sounds natural, it doesn't sound natural. It makes us look at texts, it makes us look at how language is used, it makes us think whether that's really natural or not. So I will stop here so that we have time at the end for a discussion. Thank you very much for that. That was great.
Thank you, Vander, for sharing that interesting, and I also enjoyed the interactive part of your presentation. We come to the last speakers. We have two speakers joining us from University of Southampton. We have Mary Page and Dr. Rob Bird, Senior Teaching Fellow of the University of Southampton. I believe in the chat I read one or two teachers are joining a program from your university, so I'm sure they're excited to see or hear or listen from someone from that university. Time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis, and hello from the University of Southampton. And very many sincere thanks to all the people who've made this wonderful event possible. Thank you. So we are Rob Baird and Mary Page. We both teach at the University of Southampton, and we've both been working in EME for approximately 15 years. So that's researching EME and training university academics in EME, both in country and in Southampton, and both in person and online. So today, we'd like to tell you very briefly about our exciting online teacher development project with the British Council, which is just starting now, and this is starting in the Philippines. So here we go. This is our current work. So this is a quick overview of the project, and later Rob will dig down a little bit more deeply into some of the aspects of this project. So it's, as you can see, it's professional development in EME, and it's aimed at an audience of academics in the Philippines. The universities in question have selected a total of 50 participants who we will work with to become master trainers. Our task then is to enable these academics to cascade to other academics in their locality. And to do this, we have created a framework which will be expandable and sustainable, so that after the project finishes, the universities in the Philippines will still have this solid framework for the further training of yet more academics in EME practices. And all of this, of course, will be online, both synchronous and asynchronous. So how are we able to do this? Well, we decided to use our MOOC, English as a Medium of Instruction for Academics, as the starting point. We created this MOOC 5 years ago, and it's already run 13 times on the FutureLearn platform. And it's already reached thousands of academics all over the world, and it enables them to dialogue with one another. However, the MOOC is not the training course. It's only the beginning of our course in the Philippines. We are embedding it as the foundation, and then we're adding to it extra synchronous and asynchronous activities and materials. We're building in different technologies, and we are demonstrating how a MOOC might be embedded in a program. And this points the way to future ways of delivering education. So we are thinking long term here about, you know, the rest of the 21st century. What are we going to be doing in the future? At the same time, we are looking after the individual, and we're supporting the master trainers as they transition from trainees to trainers. So we start with the MOOC, international, global, and generic, and then focus down on the minutiae of the local. Here is a Z-map from the last run of the MOOC, which just shows you the locations of the individuals following the MOOC, and therefore the people who can interact with one another as they dialogue. If you've been following closely, you may well have some questions in mind. Notably, you may be wondering why we're using the term EME rather than EMI, which is the usual term. Well, EME indicates our approach and our thinking. The word instruction suggests top-down, teacher-led focus, when in fact, we are committed to the education of all. So it's not just a question of what the teacher says and what the teacher does, but it's a holistic approach to all the players in a given environment or setting. We're actually quite humble about this in a way, because when we're talking and working with educators in localities that we know very, very little about, we would not be so bold as to tell them how to teach their subject matter and how to talk to their students, because they are the experts, not us. So we are therefore facilitators, and the approach is learning-centered rather than learner-centered or teacher-centered. So we consider ourselves to be facilitators, and what we aim to do is create a safe space in which educators can explore their ideas freely and with no fear. At the same time, we believe that we are playing to the strengths of online education. It's not second best, as some would have it. In this context, it's an excellent vehicle for teacher development on a large scale. And with technology, academics can break through the geographical boundaries and form support groups. And this is what we will be doing with and for our colleagues, our new colleagues in the Philippines. So it's not just professional development, it's continuing professional development. Anyway, over to you, Rod.
Thank you, Mary. And hello, everybody. Yes, I'd just like to take you through a couple of slides, just elaborating on some of the challenges that we perceive both in this environment and also in our experience of engaging with English medium education in different contexts around the world, and then outlining what we're trying to do on this program specifically. So one of the major challenges we find is perceptions of English medium education and what people bring to that, because sometimes it's a term that people think they understand in the same way. And when you try to engage with continuing professional development or training courses, you realize people focus on different things, or people have different concerns, or even envision the role of being an English medium educator differently. And one area of that is this second point here about language proficiency. And lots of people, when you switch the focus to English, they bring with them a lot of ways of thinking about language and performing, and concerns about their role and how they will be perceived by students, for example, in terms of language proficiency, and sometimes shifting the focus to communication, and particularly intercultural communication, use of technology, pedagogy, and disciplinary language practices, which are really important, obviously, in English medium education settings. One of the major barriers is this perception of language proficiency. I need to be fluent. I need to have correct grammar. I'm going to be judged on my kind of superficial performance, rather than what Mary was saying, you know, what learning is taking place? What are you asking students to do? And linked to that is that third point about confidence and self-belief. This is consistently one of the biggest barriers, and also one of the biggest breakthroughs that we've experienced in the 15 years we've had engaging with English medium education, that people who lack confidence in what they're doing will be less effective in an educational environment. You know, it's hard to focus on learning and facilitating student progress when you're lacking confidence in your own communicative abilities or teaching abilities. So scaffolding that and having this as an ongoing focus for teachers is very important. Also, lots of concerns on a practical level around the work and the preparation involved in continuing professional development programs. So here we're entering the Philippines, and one of the questions we had immediately was, how much time do people have? How much effort can people devote to this program? And another question we always ask when going into a new environment is about what can and cannot be changed, because a big problem in professional development is suggesting practices and processes that cannot actually be achieved in that setting, or if the institution doesn't allow certain practices in that environment, it can be very challenging. So that's just a flavor of some of the considerations we have. And if I just elaborate on the framework that Mary put forward, so our program in the Philippines will be focusing on preparation. So we've got a preparation week, and then people will engage with the MOOC that we have, which, as Mary said, is a coming together. It's a dialogue around themes such as, you know, what is the English of English medium education? What does it look like? You know, how does communication work? Also things like, you know, lecturing, using slides effectively to engage with an international audience who are probably using English as a second language. What do you need to think about? What do you need to consider? Things beyond the classroom. What can you do outside of the classroom to facilitate learning inside the classroom? So lots of things like this are the focus of the MOOC, and we're trying to focus in on what is contextually useful, what would be useful in this Philippine context that people can elaborate on, add to, engage with, which links to part 2, which is where the master trainers will create bespoke materials for local needs. So they're going to be engaging with English medium educators in their regions. So they're going to take the resources we have, possibly add to them, adapt them, and create a profile of training materials that will be localized, that will be appropriate for that setting, but informed by the discussion they're having globally on the MOOC. We're then going to roll out the teacher development program. So they're going to engage with educators in their environments. They will be having their first attempt at being a master trainer. And yeah, so as Mary said, that will be 1,000 people impacted by this program. And again, it's a sustainable cycle. So they will be able to train another 1,000 in future. And yeah, obviously it can develop from there. So this is a seed for ongoing development in this area. And some of the areas we focus on in terms of assessing how well people perform and whether they achieve what they need to achieve as master trainers. So they have to demonstrate understanding of issues in English medium education. They have to complete the tasks we set them on the program. They have to produce training materials collaboratively, so individually as well, but we focus particularly on collaboration around that. Analytical reflections, so engaging it with what they've done, demonstrating the thought process that goes into that and why this is localized, why this is appropriate for their settings, and also anything that they tried to do but it didn't quite work and they would have to adapt. That's something that the whole program can learn from. And also the quality of training evidence. So they have to evidence that they have impacted in their local environment. So that's a quick flavor, and we're happy to take questions about that at the end. If you're interested in reading more about that, we've got a couple of articles, a chapter, and a link to the MOOC for people who wish to have a look at that. And these are our contact details if you want to get in touch with us. And yeah, the two images there, the FutureLearn platform, and also that's created a large community on Facebook as well. I can't remember, Mary, do you know how many people are in our little Facebook group now?
I think it's 1,200.
Right. So yeah, but it's wonderful to see people are interested in this. People want to get together. They want to engage. They want to be in this global dialogue. And so yeah, you're welcome to join and see what other people are discussing. So we will finish there and say thank you very much. And as I said, we're happy to take any questions at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary and Rob. We have time for panel discussion, and I would like to bring all the panelists back if they can be spotlighted. And I would like to invite questions. If you have questions to Dr. Cecilia Halimi, Dr. Van der Viana, Mary Page, and Dr. Rob Beard, you are welcome to do so by posting your questions in the Q&A box. In the meantime, I have questions for Mary and Rob. What are the main things that you have learned so far in your program?
So much.
Okay.
But everybody is different. Everyone is in a different setting and has to have the self-belief and the strength to make the decisions and do what is appropriate for their students.
And I would,
briefly.
Yeah. And I would add, I'd say what I learn every time we engage with English medium educators is how strong the community is, like how good people are. Like people working in universities are incredibly talented, communicative, and collegial people in general. Students are here to learn. You know, it's a very productive environment, and it's a very supportive environment. And when people engage with the human element of higher education, I think that's why we enjoy being in this field. Is, you know, we
Yes.
get constantly surprised how engaging and how lovely people are in their own way, and they can bring out this communication and this effectiveness in very different ways, as Mary said. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's wonderful that you still learn as well, and you're sharing with the teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How about Ibu Cecilia? How about you and what you've been doing at the University of Indonesia?
Well, Francis, sorry, I had a problem before. What was your question?
Okay. The question is, what have you learned so far from doing your programs in the capacity building for your lecturers there?
Okay, well, I think based on my experience in our university, actually they are very enthusiastic, yeah, in learning new things and everything. And this is something which is very good, because it means that we can always offer new programs for them, yeah. And the problem is, again, they don't have a lot of time. So I think the solution for designing the program in the form of online course is something that I think is the solution for this, because when it is a face-to-face session, it is hard for them to allocate their time between teaching and then professional development and etc. So if we can, with this pandemic, I think we have a lot of ideas that we can integrate in the lecturers' professional development, I think.
Okay, you mentioned online, so I would like to go probably vendor for you. What are the main challenges for online teacher training, and what are the main advantages other than you can reach people far from your place?
Thank you, Francis. Yes, well, I think one of the main challenges that we see in the research we have done on the back of the professional development courses that we have offered is basically what colleagues have already said, is time, having the time to dedicate to do something. But I would second what colleagues have said. Personal investment is really important. I mean, what we see working with teachers, working with students, is that they are invested, they are interested in developing. They have a natural curiosity, and I think that shouldn't be taken for granted. The fact that, I mean, people are curious, people want to learn more, that people are, even though they have challenges time-wise, with, I mean, their workloads, teaching large classes, teaching lots of classes, I think that's a very positive thing. As you said earlier on, I mean, in terms of the, in addition to the number of people that we can reach, I think the online provision also helps us to congregate at different places. I mean, we probably wouldn't be able to be holding this event if we had to be all in the same place today, just because of restrictions. But even if there were no restrictions, I mean, think about the time, the effort, and the money involved in that, not to say the environmental considerations of, I mean, everyone traveling to the same place. So I think that there are positives as well for us to think about.
Okay, thank you. We do have questions here now for the panelists, but I don't think we have time. Let me check with the time. Oh, okay. Oh, we have one more. I think we can do one more from Ibu Irene. If time and resources are limited, what should be the first priority in TPD? Improving English skills or teaching skills? This goes to all of you.
Teaching skills.
Teaching skills. Okay, Ibu Cecilia also agree, teaching skills?
Well, it really depends. If I think the proficiency level of our lecturers is not very good, then I think that should be the first priority. But I think at the university level, maybe this is not really a big problem, so we can focus on the teaching skills.
Okay. Vander, you want to say something?
Well, I would agree with Cecilia. I mean, I think it's more a one-to-one kind of reflection that people need to take them in, where their skills are, where they need to develop. It's very difficult to roll out something that is applicable to everyone. So I would encourage people to engage in reflection, which was mentioned in the previous session, to decide what works best for them.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing what you have been doing in the teacher professional development and higher education, particularly with the EME, as you say in Southampton there. Thank you so much. That concludes the second session of the day. And ladies and gentlemen, attendees, we have one last session, and I believe in the Q&A box, there are many questions about the grants. So you might want to stay tuned and you can ask your questions and Colm will answer the questions. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with the question and answer session on UK-ID digital innovation grants. Ladies and gentlemen, let's say appreciate the speakers by clapping our hands digitally. You can type clap, clap, clap in the chat, or you can give your reaction. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert, Mary Page, Dr. Cecilia Halimi, and Dr. Vander for your presentation.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last session of today. This is probably the most anticipated session because if you look at the Q&A box, many questions are about the grants. So this is your opportunity. Where Calm Downs, the Director, English Education and Society, British Council Indonesia, will answer your dying questions about the grant, about the UK-ID Digital Innovation Grants that was launched yesterday. So Calm, over to you.
Thank you very much, Francis. Selamat semua. Good afternoon, everybody in Indonesia, and good morning to everybody in the UK. Thank you very much for staying with us, for your strength. It's been a long afternoon, really inspiring. It's all been recorded, so if you've missed anything, you will be able to watch the recording and share that with your colleagues. This session is scheduled for 15 minutes. We may go slightly over. Nobody has to stay, but I will stay and answer questions. It's just the first opportunity to sort of have some questions about our grants, and there will be others. Yesterday, I gave a presentation about the new UK-Indonesia Digital Innovation Grants. So if you missed that, then my first recommendation would be I'll ask a colleague to put a link in the chat, is to have a look at that presentation. What I thought I would do very briefly is I'm going to spend about 5 minutes giving a quick recap of some of the key facts, and then we can take questions because I might cover some of your questions in that way. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start off with some slides. And there's a few new ones here. Let me go to the beginning. So the first thing I wanted to say, and this is slightly different, is that we are very keen to get some feedback from all of you about the webinars today, about our launch. So throughout the session, there's a QR code and a link. There's lots of links, I'm afraid, but they're all useful. There is this is a code for feedback. I'll share that again at the end of this Q&A session. This is a very important part of the what we're trying to achieve this week is to develop more partnerships between the UK and Indonesia. And this is something new today. So if you see this link at the bottom, if you go to this link, and I think we might be able even to share a copy of this at the moment as a PDF in the chat. But what it is, it's a booklet that our colleagues at DIT, Department for International Trade from the UK, have been putting together of the companies and universities and consultants from the UK that wanted to appear in that booklet. And although we have already designed it very nicely and we're going to share it with you now, if you are in the UK and you want to be in this booklet, you still have a chance. There's a link there, a purple one, slightly different. And we are giving you until Friday to complete the form, send us your company, your organization's details, and we're going to update that booklet next week. Similarly, if you are in Indonesia, if you're a university or you're an ELT organization or an EdTech company, and you're interested in being a partner in these grant schemes, and you would like us to share your details with the UK, we are going to create a similar document. It won't be quite as colorful as the UK booklet, but we will be putting together your contact details. So again, same time in Indonesia in this case, could you complete that? We have about 10 Indonesian that have completed this link. Next, some details, quick details. So this is what I presented yesterday to say that our grants are now live. They were launched yesterday. This is the link to our British Council website where you can find all of the documents. This is the main one that you can read, which details what we are looking for proposals for, what the objectives of these grants are, what the eligibility criteria are, what the deadlines and the timeline for delivery are, all of the sort of requirements in order to submit your proposal should be all in this document, along with the forms for you to complete. And as I've said, we are looking for UK-Indonesian partners to design, develop, pilot, and evaluate a new TPD resource, so some training material, a course that is going to support the development of English teachers, both in schools and in universities in Indonesia. And as you can see at the bottom, we particularly keen to have proposals that are also going to help teachers who are living in remote and rural areas who maybe don't have as easy access to a strong internet connection as people living in cities. So again, that was yesterday's presentation. Just a reminder that we don't have a fixed number of grants, but in those three categories I just shared, we are interested in awarding between 2 to 3 proposals with funding. And at the moment, we have put an amount of £50,000 for each individual grant. So if you can imagine, there could well be 5, 6, 7 possibly different projects running next year. The plan is for these projects to run from January to March 2023, so 14 months. But with the decisions, we will be making a decision in November and then distributing the first payment of the grant to the successful applicants in December. I think I'm about to get to the Q&A. Just a brief reminder of the timeline that we've launched yesterday. I'm going to give you another link to ask questions. You can send us lots of questions. We're definitely going to have a long Q&A on the 19th for people. This is a shorter one. We may do some other briefing sessions, but this is the only one we've confirmed at the moment. The big date for most people to be aware of is that the deadline is the 9th of November for submitting your proposal. And then these are how we will, the time we will need to evaluate and make a decision, and then aiming to sign an agreement in December and get going. I think I'm going to stick with this screen for a minute, and then I'm going to look at the questions. So this is, there's 2 links on the page. Again, this is one link for feedback on this session. If I don't get to your question today, there is a question within the feedback, which is tell us your question, so we can develop a Q&A or an FAQ form answering most of the main questions. So I need to look at the chat, and I might ask Francis to help me a little bit. I'm going to go through the questions. I think you can see my screen when I do this. Okay, so I'm going to just go through the questions I can see. I'll answer them live. This is the Q&A box. The requirements, Kumara or Kamaria, all of the requirements to get the grant are in this document, and there are a few requirements, but I'm going to say go and have it. There's too many just to answer in that format, so I have answered that live. That, I think, is not a question for the grants, but it's a question that we've got a MOOC running on that right at the moment. You could go and have a look. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through. Again, this is Indrayati has asked, what are the things that need to be included in the grant proposal? Again, I would recommend that you look at the document on the website. And Nudalia is asking about English for medical professionals. And I would say tomorrow there is a specific expert, the UK's expert in medical English is on tomorrow's schedule. So come back tomorrow to find out more in that area. Let me have a look. Maybe I will look at the chat. I'm going to ask Francis, can you help me with any questions that you can see that it would be useful for me to answer? Some people are raising their hands, so I'm wondering if we can almost let people speak. I'm quite happy to do that. Francis, can you tell me any specific questions that you've seen? Oh, there are questions coming in.
There is one question, Tom, about is that grant also for primary teachers, for individual or just organization?
Okay, so one of the requirements, the people who, to be honest, this type of grant is for organizations. It could be an individual, but it would have to be an individual with a lot of experience in writing and designing effective teacher professional development resources. And I think that that individual would probably be part of a, well, would have to be, the other not participant, the other sort of institution or would certainly be kind of a well-known, well-established English language teaching and training organization, company or institution. I think we would, unless that individual had fantastic evidence of their ability to design very effective teacher professional development resources that are used at scale, maybe in other countries or in Indonesia nationally. Obviously, if there's an individual that has that kind of background, then we would be interested in something that they would submit. But usually, I think we would expect to find that kind of experience within a university or with an EdTech company or an ELT private company like the ones that featured in session 2 this afternoon. Thanks, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak. That was a question from Pak Rusidi.
Yeah, so maybe individuals could be working together with universities, or with other organizations as part of a collective proposal.
How about MKMP, Pak? Because MKMP is mandatory. It's a lot of MKMP growing up in Indonesia. That kind of organization, is that possible to apply for the grant?
Yes. I think there's two things to say there. One is we want to develop resources that are going to fit into existing Ministry of Education initiatives for teacher training. So as yesterday, there was the DG from the Ministry of Education, Dr. Iwan Sharil, and talked about the fantastic innovations that the ministry is taking in online provision. And earlier today, Ibu Ija Khodira talked about the professional development sort of mechanisms that are in place at the moment for teachers. And I would say that we want to, although we might be a private company or a private organization or a university developing resources, we want to make sure that those resources fit into these existing mechanisms. And if one of the applicants happens to be a government agency responsible for the management or delivery of those professional development systems, then certainly we would welcome working and supporting a proposal to do that directly. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, okay, thank you, because I think it's a lot of people, teachers here belong to MKMP for sure. Yeah. In that area. Yeah, thank you, Pak Hom.
Colin, we have one question. Do we by Santi the study? Just a quick question. Do we have to select a partner listed in the booklet?
No, not at all. I would say, look, the booklet is designed to work in two ways. One is very simply, it's a booklet that will help you get an insight into the range of different ELT expertise in the UK. And you might want to use that booklet just as like, if you're a university or a school in Indonesia and you wanted some specific teacher training needs, then you could use that booklet and you could contact them directly for those needs. But also you might be thinking about a proposal for this grant and think, oh, I've got an idea. I would like to explore, maybe I want to find a partner who might be interested in working with me on this idea. I'm sure the companies and consultants listed in that booklet would be open to those kind of conversations to see if something, if there's an alignment in the idea and strategy. And this is how some of these proposals could come together.
Okay.
But the question was, sorry, you don't have to pick somebody from the booklet.
From the list.
You could find somebody not in the list, and that's absolutely fine as well. Completely.
Okay. People are typing the questions in the chat, and it might be difficult to track. But how about non-formal teacher? Can I apply to?
It's not really. This is not really a grant for, as I said, unless you are an individual and a like unbelievably amazing individual that has managed to write professional development resources that are used kind of nationally. I think it would be unlikely that you would be successful in a proposal. You could submit a proposal. 2 individuals, one from Indonesia, one from the UK could. I think it's not really that there are grants or more sort of schemes for individuals. It's not sort of a particular, it's not, for example, an individual training grant. This is really an opportunity to work on something that is going to be of national support, if you like, impact.
Okay, but teachers can join the program if they get the grant and they create the program. And
what I would say is we want all teachers to join the outputs of these grants. So these grants are going to produce courses that are going to be exciting, they're going to be interesting, they're going to be innovative, they're going to be attractive, they're going to be relevant to Indonesian teachers. They're going to, we want, what these grants are for are to develop the programs next year that in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, we hope all teachers are going to be doing the programs. So it's all for teachers. And yeah, that's the idea. So we want teachers to join the outcomes. Maybe teachers could volunteer to be, to test these innovations next summer as they're being developed. We need feedback from teachers to get it right. We need feedback, and the partners who are developing the resources will need to pilot everything to make sure that it's relevant.
Okay, so don't be discouraged. If you cannot apply, you can still benefit from the grants, yeah, teachers. One last question, Colm. Can one institution apply with 2 different partnerships?
Yeah, I might need to clarify exactly the wording in our documents, because I know it says like the main partner in the UK and the main partner in Indonesia, but definitely we welcome kind of joint proposals from multiple parties. So for example, it could be 3 or 4 organizations decide to come together, and that's absolutely fine.
Okay, all right. I think we don't have any more questions. People are saying goodbye. Sorry, they have to leave for another meeting. Thank you for staying for these 3 hours.
I wanted to, you go.
Can I ask the schedule for the clarification meeting? Because yesterday you mentioned that there will be a meeting for people who still have doubts about their proposals that they can consult. Can you mention the date for that?
Well, we're definitely going to have one on the 19th of October.
Okay.
And like that feedback form that I just shared the QR code to, we're going to analyze like the feedback that we get from today, and maybe the feedback that we get from tomorrow, and maybe emails, when people start to get in touch with us, and we'll start to better understand what kind of clarity is needed. and how best to do that, whether we need to do something just for Indonesian audience or just for the UK audience, or another way of trying to bring the UK and Indonesia together. But thank you again so much for everybody who's joined today. It's been really smooth. Thank you, Francis, for moderating, and thanks Tor and Aitel. We've almost finished. I can't remember doing an online webinar where everything seems to have gone so smoothly.
We have one more. We have one last slide to remind participants to come back tomorrow for our third and final session of the series. So if you haven't followed the Instagram, the social media, you might want to check this flyer for tomorrow's session. Thank you so much, panelists and participants who stay until the end. I can see in the panelist box, we still have people from the first session staying in until the end. So thank you so much. Good afternoon and good morning still probably in the UK. See you tomorrow.